As the bathroom door side shut, Tess double-clicked the locks. Immediately, a soft voice welcomed her to the sanitary pod and started guiding her through the instructions for how to get the most refreshing and hygienic experience. She hit mute. Focus. Deception was her job. She'd been trained to lie, to hold cover. The closer she let him get to her, the easier her job would become. That was all that mattered, getting the job done. She saw a bar running across the pod ceiling and leapt up, grabbing it with both hands. 1, 2, 3. Revelation was the truth. 6, 7, 8. Foundation City was the corruption. 11, 12, 13. P8 was the enemy. 16, 17, 18. To be true to the faith meant to follow. Chapter 28. Cillian gazed up at the interlocking glass curves of the station roof as the bullet train pulled into the northern hub. Even though it was an outpost of civilization, the hub was trying hard to feel metropolitan. We'd better be quick, unless you want to queue for hours, Tess said, leading the way off the train. They stood on the platform for a few moments, trying to get their bearings. Most of the passengers hurried away in a search of shuttles to take them further north to the leisure parks. Slower off the train were the older people who had made their money in Foundation and retired to the quieter life of the coastal resorts. Coming in the opposite direction was a steady stream of teenagers with bulging suitcases, boarding the train to go in search of wealth and opportunity in the city. Tess couldn't help feeling sorry for them. They had no idea about the tough reality awaiting them, the intense competition that would burn so many dreams away. She wondered how long it would be before all of that bright optimism in their eyes evaporated. Over there, Cillian spotted an illuminated sign above the main concourse. Hospital shuttles. Large flashing arrows pointed to several different exits. As they got closer, Tess and Cillian realised that hundreds of people, some bandaged, others on crutches, at least a dozen in wheelchairs, all had the same idea. They were converging on the shuttle pickup points, where buses loaded and dropped off in a continuous stream. Looks like Gilgamesh is a big business, Tess said, taken aback. It's only the hospital in the northern province, Cillian replied grimly. No walk-ins out here. They managed to get a seat near the back of the shuttle and sat quietly as the bus pushed into the empty landscape. Cillian gazed out of the window. The only road to... Oscar! Shush! Oscar! Cillian gazed out of the window. The only road the snowplows kept clear was the one that led to Gilgamesh. All of the others seemed to have vanished under ice. Tess's eyes darted around, checking out the other passengers, wondering what illness each of them was battling. They all sat patient and uncomplaining, quietly convinced that Gilgamesh would restore them and end their pain. It reminded Tess of a history textbook that she'd once read about people going on a pilgrimage to Lourdes in the search of a miracle cure. Only here, science was the religion. They didn't take any prisoners when they built those, Cillian said. Tess followed his gaze. They were passing through a massive wind farm, hundreds and hundreds of spinning turbines lined up like a steel battalion. I think it was a town once, Cillian pointed to a strange pattern of scars in the ground. With a jolt, Tess recognised the imprint of a vanished community. Houses, shops, roads had all been bulldozed in one swoop to make way for this wind farm. People had been moved out, and all that was left were thousands of lines in the ground where the snow struggled to settle. They certainly do things differently in the provinces. 20 minutes later, the bus slowed down and stopped by some bulldozers that were blocking the road. Sorry about the delay, folks, the driver said cheerily over the tannoy. Storm last week took out the bridge. Never seen rain like it. Went on for 3 days. Everyone craned their heads to get a better look. The pillars under the bridge had been washed clean away, leaving a twisted steel skeleton half submerged in the icy water. Dozens of men in orange overalls were hard at work digging the soggy mud and clearing tarmac that had been rippled up like bits of cardboard. The shuttle bus was hitched to a couple of tractors, and as it was towed across a temporary pontoon bridge, Cillian saw what was really going on. Bloody hell! The men doing the hard labour were chained to each other with the manacles around their feet. Chain gangs? Literally! You never wondered why Foundation City is so safe. I knew the prisons were in the provinces, but Everyone has to earn their keep, even convicts. When they say crime is sorted, Tess pointed at the miserable frozen souls knee-deep in mud. That's what they mean. It was a relief to finally arrive at Gilgamesh, a vast, sprawling complex that felt like a glowing beacon in the wilderness. This is a hell of a lot bigger than I'd imagined, Tess said, looking up at the emergency helicopters landing on the roof. Apparently there's been a hospital here for 1,000 years. I can believe it. At the heart of the complex was a Gothic fortress, all spires, steep roofs, and cloistered courtyards built on the spectacular granite cliffs overlooking the ocean. But it looked like numerous layers had been added to across the centuries. The most recent one wrapping the hospital in an ultra-modern glass skin. Did you feel that? Cillian asked pensively. What? Through your feet? Tess concentrated but couldn't feel anything. Cillian crouched down and rested his hand on the cold ground. There. Tess did the same, placing her hand next to his. A few moments later she felt a tremor through her palm, a deep, resonant thump from inside the earth. It's the sea, Cillian said, the waves pounding the rocks. It was like an ancient heartbeat, a primal pulse underneath all the gloss and technology. Cillian looked up at Gilgamesh. What was it about this place that had seared itself into his father's mind? Chapter 29. Patient, visitor, or new staff. The orientation buggies waited inside the main entrance were as polite and diligent as the day they were programmed. Cillian touched visitor as he and Tess climbed into one of the small pods and the tour started. It was a great way to get the lie of the land without arousing suspicion. The OB whisked them down corridors and up ramps, gliding past other buggies with perfect timing, attentively stopping to give patients being wheeled on stretchers or the right of way. While the OB blithely rattled off facts and figures about hospitals and how many people it treated every week, Cillian and Tess studied the buildings, looking for anything suspicious or out of place. But all they saw were endless corridors and wards that looked identical. This is going to take forever, Tess sighed. Can't you do your pattern recognition thing, find something that doesn't fit? Cillian touched the buggy screen to pull up an interactive map and paged through the different levels. It unnerved Tess to see how he changed when he locked into that mode. It was almost tangible. A weird energy seemed to surround him, excluding everything else. The patterns of the old building are so confused, he said, shaking his head. It's all a bit of a mess. Then let's go for the most obscure part. Tess touched asthma clinic. No one gets that anymore. The OB took a sharp left and headed off on the new course. After a few minutes, the corridors started to get narrower, and then a set of doors slid back and the buggy crossed a glassed-in walkway between two surgical wings. This is more like it. Tess hit pause, and the buggy pulled smoothly to a stop. From here you could look down onto the oldest part of Gilgamesh. Forbidding granite towers clustered around a swathe of open ground that led down to the sheer cliff edge. What about these old buildings? What happens in there? The original hospital buildings are only used for storage now, the OB replied. Over the years, people have suggested that they could be turned into a museum, but there are no plans at present. Cillian and Tess exchanged a sceptical look. All that for storage, she whispered. I don't think so. There was a massive construction project underway with cranes and excavators and piling machines reaching deep into the heart of the old structure. Looms of cable were unspooling from huge drums. Equipment cabinets were being lowered through roofs, and the whole site was bristling with security cameras. But as Cillian climbed out of the buggy to take some pictures, the OB suddenly got edgy. Please get back in the vehicle. I won't be a minute. Return to your seat. Okay, I heard the first time. This is not an authorised stop. Return to the vehicle. Relax. Take it easy. Cillian climbed back on board before the OB flipped out. Are you always such a nag? All he got back was a sulky silence. Must have touched a nerve, Tess said quietly. She hit resume on the control panel, and they trundled off, the OB instantly in a good mood again. Coming up on our left is the eye unit with its specialist operating theatres for retinal surgery. But Cillian and Tess weren't paying attention. They looked back at the old buildings disappearing from view. That was the Gilgamesh they were interested in. Chapter 30. They got the orientation buggy to drop them at the hospital library, where one of the archivists seemed keen to help. "We're very proud of our medical school," she said. "Generations of doctors have trained here. Can your father remember his login codes?" "No, he..." Suddenly Cillian dried up. He hadn't thought the lie through. "He was in an accident," Tess swooped in. "I'm sorry to hear that," the archivist sympathised. "That's why we're here. Cillian needs to find out things he never got to ask." "Oh," the archivist was suddenly embarrassed. "Of course." Anxious not to dwell on the awkwardness, she activated a reading card. "This is a day pass. All our records are on the system. It's pretty clear where to look." Cillian and Tess chose a study booth by the windows and drew up a couple of chairs. It didn't take them long.